냠제 점보도도 유미종 또는 점보가 자다 다그러 다른 전도 실문도 또마도 제잔라기 쇼음살.
To liberate sentient beings, please generate the supreme bodhicitta before we start today's teaching. Next, we will proceed to recite the profound Tibetan transmission of the Lotus Sutra. This particular Tibetan transmission holds immense and crucial importance within the tradition. Even if you may not fully or necessarily comprehend every single word or concept you hear during this recitation, the act of receiving the entire Tibetan transmission through your ears is profoundly beneficial and significant. The blessing power is different. I can feel it myself. During the process of translation, when I have the authentic transmission of these profound teachings, it seems much easier to accurately translate them. It truly feels as if I have full confidence. If I had never received the proper transmission when translating certain complex treatises like these, it would be incredibly difficult. It seems I would have to grope my way for a long time. For example, the commentary on the root verses of the Middle Way and the Vyakarana Sutra. I've also heard that in our institute, a few Khenpos have that transmission. In the future, I hope to request and receive this transmission. But before I had received the transmission, I was working on the translation. It seemed that during this process, the Indian commentaries themselves were extremely difficult to understand. So I truly believe that the sacred Dharma you have received, especially the profound Dharma for which you have received the complete transmission, in the future, when you are spreading it, you will definitely have confidence. If your oral transmission is incomplete or you have not yet fully received it, even if you might be able to explain it to others verbally, you yourself may not necessarily have a complete and utter confidence in it. At the same time, what you teach to others may not necessarily bring significant benefit to their mind stream. So, specifically speaking about this particular time period, there may indeed be a well-established tradition of teaching the Lotus Sutra in the Han region, but as for the actual lineage practitioners, there may not be many. It's not that there are absolutely none. So this time, with so many dedicated people gathered here together, some are listening in person and some are listening online. And it's also fine to listen online. If you are not very clear about the transmission received in Tibetan, it is best to pay even closer attention when the Chinese explanation is given later and listen with full concentration and complete attention. If you are still unclear when it is carefully explained in Chinese, do not underestimate the valuable previous transmission. I often see that many Dharma friends online only join in later. This kind of situation happens. Perhaps it is due to network connectivity issues, like the stream not going through properly or being completely unable to access it. Or perhaps everyone just focuses intently on the actual content of the teaching itself. And apart from that, other things like the transmission and the origin are not given much significant importance. No matter what, whatever you choose to do is your own freedom. I don't have any particularly strict requirements in this specific regard. But overall, for this important time listening to the sacred Lotus Sutra, whether it's the monastics and lay people physically present, or those of us diligently attending the class online, everyone has generally maintained good discipline during the teachings, and the motivation and intention everyone has shown have all been truly excellent. So from the very beginning of this journey, I have always been in a profound state of joy. I also sincerely hope that if we all work diligently together, one day this sacred lineage will be truly complete, and this entire profound teaching will be fully and completely transmitted. Now I will proceed to recite the complete and detailed transmission.
Wambo nipa tenep chondende, chambada danjam khenpa vjenda, tangin zan tele vjanso, jane jang tsedan damba shari to di velap ka tsarpa shari ve, devjang shaba chab chamba yang topar zopa sangye namji tiksi chetpa. Sangye ji sina zapam tongor kawar, topar kawar te nyanto dang rang sangye tamchi ji jan shibra kawo, te jibshir jena shari ve devjang shaba chab chamba yang topar zoba sandi namna sandi jia chakchu gyar tongchok mambo la nimkarim zapa sandi jia chakchu gyar tongchok mambo la lana me pa yang dakbar zoba shangchib to shoba shapa yin rangbo ne jisi jigba zonji imzapa te ngomtsir dang matab shongwe chudang danjan shibro kawe churnam khenbi shiro shariwa devjang shakba drab chumba yang dakbar zoba sandi na rdembor gongdev shapa na shibro kawo te jibshir jena rang rikki chur nam talam kepa dang yishim thongwa dang ryo dang zhe dang mungpa dang ngitsig dang nambar rikpa zhebar na zo di yang dang bar ton te talam kepa te da ki kyang semchen te dang te la chakpa nambar chur riri shiro shariwa devjang shaba drab chumba yang dang bar zoba san di nam na talam kepa chenpur te yishim thongwa dambi parur do shimba wo shariwa devjang shaba drab chumba yang dang bar zoba san di nam na chakpa me chang thokpa me pa yishim thongwa dang top dang manjik pa dang manjik pa dang wangbo dang top dang shangchib ki yanlag dang sangtan dang nambar tarwa dang tangin zan dang nyumbarin jik pa dang matub shungwe chu dang nambar te chur nambar na zokpa te dang tomba wo shariwa devjang shaba drab chumba yang dang bar zoba san di nam na ngomtsir chenpo nipa wo shariwa te zamjib shaba chokpura ki shi shariwa devjang shaba drab chumba yang dabar zoba sangye namna ngomtsir chuk nipa te shariwa devjang shaba drab chumba devjang shaba chukang khenpi chu te devjang shaba nilan cha to shariwa chu tamchida nida kyang devjang shaba nida tondo chu tamchida kyang devjang shaba nidim khen te chu te dak kyang te dak kang yinba dang chu te jirtawa yinba dang chu de jinzha yinba dang chu de da kam sanit gang yinba dang chu de da ngu ni de gang yinba dang chu de da gang yinba dang chu de da jirtawa dang jinzhawa dang sanit gang yinba ngu dang ngu ni ji yinba yam khen do de ne chongden de ni ti ton de ni da je per ton ba de zhe zhe bi shir da kwa zar do lamr ji bin jigden na hwa wo chen bo ho me ba 남진 샘진 담지기 남바건데 심하니 때도 또 남타르다 지금의 강덕 전자와 상제출 넘은 전자와 시장 시벌 많이소 상제지 간다거나 잡장신도 자와다 감통화가와이 쇼바당는 간지년 거러시 상인서 쇼바대도 샤바이 임제베데 너 진짜와 상주년 봉임통 되는 직된 남진 바 잔덕당는 예시대 지다인다 진짜당 대임산이 진짜시 대든 대는 단다 많이대 대는 주도 요메도 무발라는 강내 바 상주 생화 마토바 강라 주대 담바다 된시바이 된지 샘진 서양은 직된당나 요마연 강당 직된 캠비 냔투바 럭버시바 데럭셔베 자바타미 린zen 데덕 여너 겨르 이신다 라메드 가르텐 직된 데덕 탐쳤도 샤리버는 자버 간저데 직든 디버게르네 남삼 야 데덕 데르 서이시 데덕 데럭셔 이시시마니 Karti kyodong javim kernam gi chogo nama chara kangwar kirwa tang kangyang ayi nyantu ndado nama tedag ki jang tevzhin kangjir tedag tamchak chigda tang dini dero shagba yishir nam sam kyang jazam chatmid yishi nge shi ba tamchan dibe shibar mani so.
A Tibetan text newly typed by hand or simply copied over from somewhere. It's from the traditional Kangyur collection, right? If someone else has already typed it, then how do we actually proofread it? We still need to proofread, right?
게 원본노 타밀린 점베 저터닉 동담이 차르준도 속저 탐짓 강덕 강바라 게라도 찍든 디네 넘버섬 시장 아이 주짐 촉급 촉점이야 가라시와 촉축 타이스 대양도 돈 용마시 샹주선화 더불어 흑사르직바 상디시와 망와 샤시 신등이 돈 추르마 망보 nama deda gangyang chokchir gangyar de nigdang dama zhinda jikten gan varnsam mepar Tagda Gangjara La, Sigdan Diner, number of Simshida Jan, Shirp Travis Janda, Masimber, Karashia, Mambo Homepa, Kungo Longo Shimani, Sama Jan, Chukan de Rosha, Monzuba, Dalate, Namdi, Yerme do, Shirmer do Babjancho, Zanhua Gang, Manyon, Ganga Longo, Shirni Ji, Janda, Masim, number of Samshi Jan, Dalate, Kian, Yerme do. Zabjan Shendam Chava, Churto, Artopa Mela Tamchid Zopa Meda, Chojin Jitin, Gera Teta, Dang, Yenandana Teta, Chendrashi, Janman Noxon, Jarva Changchong Che, Yenran Dinam Chok, Tun Chet, Devroshabe, Gantan Teta, Muba Puzum Zoba, Shariva, Nyan To Pananda, Tamchet, Ransan Yes, Magic, Magan Jigba, Ningen de la Nena Gangoda, Jang, Dungur Gile Yanda. Go Gang Shirin Jigtin Dona Chu Mamshada, Dedang de la Chaba Rapture Shir, Tabaxum de Tabaxum de Never Tamba na Gang de Ngai Tam Game Choyono, Denin Kurte, Dena, Denin Kurtena, Genshi Gochia La Sope, Nyanto Chimbo, Ganda, Rapjumba, Zabadang, Zapa, Wandang, Damber, Gerarton, Nidang, Ton Nivietang, Ton Niviadang. Giant Ganda Nyantuji Tabala Jibo, Gerlondang, Gerlon Madang, Givnin Madang, Ganda Gransan Gigi Tabala Jiba, Teta Tamchit Dunyam the Simte, Jundun Deji, Dejan Shaba, Namji, Tablam Kipa, Chirknabadang, Choose up Motem, Number Zober San, Yeso Jirson, Yantudang, Ransan Di Tamchi, Shibrka, Jirson, Jikan, Jikan, Jenachi, Yana, Durter, Jundun Deji, number Jorach, Jiko, Jikafzardo, Darchak Namjan, Sanji, Churnam, Nipper Kirja, Nyangan Lendava, Toba, Yunmoji, Jundun Deji, Somba, Teta, Tono, Darchaki, Maruko, Nyamo.
Wow, it's quite incredibly hot at the Institute right now indeed. I can see that some of you are wearing very thick, warm clothes. If you wear such thick clothes in summer, what will you wear in winter? Next, we will begin discussing the Lotus Sutra. We have already finished the first chapter, the chapter on causes and conditions. Now we will move on to the second chapter called the chapter on skillful means. Many great masters of the past have felt that this chapter on skillful means, as well as the later chapter called the chapter on the lifespan of the Tathagata, these two chapters are extremely important. Moreover, within these two profound chapters, the most profound wisdom of the Tathagata is truly revealed. Some commentators believe that this chapter on skillful means, within the entire Lotus Sutra, it plays a pivotal illuminating role. Therefore, as we diligently study this text, everyone should pay very special attention to it, because within the chapter on skillful means, in fact, many essential and important instructions are clearly explained and detailed. Some traditional scholarly views from the renowned ancient Chinese Tiantai school, as well as from the highly influential and deeply respected Chan Buddhism tradition, regarding the Buddha's perfect and sudden teachings, whether it is a direct realization or indeed the most definitive and ultimate meaning, which is according to the profound doctrines of Tibetan Buddhism. The wisdom taught in the Lotus Sutra is the most definitive, ultimate, and true reality among all Dharma methods. So when it comes to the important chapter on skillful means, through some of the Buddha's most skillful methods, he temporarily taught the three vehicles to beings of the three vehicles. But ultimately speaking, for those with very sharp faculties, for those who can be directly guided, he consistently used direct Dharma methods, direct approaches, to provide them with a skillful means. In the end, they attained sudden enlightenment, direct awakening. This is the most ultimate content of this chapter. So, during our process of study, on the surface, it appears to be a dialogue between the Buddha and the Śrāvakas. But in reality, if we have faith, If we have karmic connections and virtuous roots from past lives, we should be able to recognize the nature of mind. This point is very important. In this world, perhaps many other material things that people consider extremely important nowadays in modern society, all kinds of worldly pursuits in our current daily lives, including people's focus on family and daily life, on cars, houses, and bank cards. These are indeed the very things that people all over the world talk about the most nowadays, and truly for the time being, these are certainly very important for everyone. But in reality, the most important, the most ultimate thing, perhaps what brings you the greatest happiness, is recognizing the nature of mind. When you understand these skillful means of practice, then all the things we just mentioned, if you have them, of course, if these things appear as a result of your own good fortune, that's also very good. Even if you currently don't possess them, or if you had them previously, but due to various unforeseen circumstances, they significantly changed, and now you no longer do, I can still manage to remain perfectly calm and genuinely happy. You will undoubtedly experience this profound kind of feeling and a significant, lasting effect. Therefore, in the discerning eyes of a dedicated practitioner, many intricate and profound changes in our everyday worldly life, and numerous significant shifts in the broader world, and much impermanence in the world, for dedicated practitioners, these profound aspects are nothing out of the ordinary. They are extremely, extremely simple to understand. This includes some personal happiness and contentment as well, you could say. There are many things. I think I also heard that many Dharma friends in our institute, no matter what the particular situation is, whether it's the weather conditions, the surrounding environment, or other external factors, because in our Tibetan region, sometimes the weather is cold one moment and hot the next, and our health can also be good one moment and not so good the next. But most people's general mindset is especially stable and consistent. Sometimes I even go out of my way to carefully observe this phenomenon. I also regularly check in on a few specific people's group chats, because currently there are many various groups for practitioners, including both men's and women's groups. I now use a kind of secret method to discreetly see what they're talking about, just to take a quick look. Overall, it seems that most people, from what I can gather, are in agreement, have a mindset like that of a practitioner. The mindset of a practitioner and that of someone who has never practiced at all, I personally believe there should be a big difference. A true practitioner, things that ordinary people can't face, are actually quite easy for them to accept. And if it's something that ordinary people can handle, then for someone who is a bit more advanced in their practice, it's even less worth mentioning at all. They should be able to handle it with complete ease and confidence. So, in these important areas, our Khenpos, Khenmos, and Dharma teachers also need to regularly guide the students in their classes and those they mentor. We not only need to teach some of the profound principles of Buddhism, but sometimes we also need to talk about certain worldly human principles, because if someone doesn't even understand basic worldly principles, for example, simple basics of being a decent person, if they don't know how to conduct themselves as a person, they might find themselves in conflict everywhere, constantly running into obstacles and feeling very uncomfortable. But if someone is good at being a person, even if their spiritual practice isn't that great, no matter where they go, whether it's to Tibetan regions or Han regions, to any monastery or Dharma center in Tibet, whoever interacts with them, they will find it easy to be happy wherever they are. But if someone is neither good at spiritual practice nor at being a person, then that person may have nowhere to fit in and will find life very difficult. It won't help to change to countless different Dharma centers. You could say that being a good person and spiritual practice are a kind of behavior. They are two different kinds of behavior. Some people are good at spiritual practice, but poor at being a person. This is seen among lay practitioners and monastics. Being a good person also requires wisdom. Observe people around you, both above and below, conduct and speak. Sometimes the way we speak is, I once said in class that it's better to speak more directly. Don't beat around the bush too much and don't be too cunning. But sometimes perhaps we are too direct in our speech. If you speak in an extremely blunt way, you might not consider those around you and end up offending everyone. You might find yourself with no way out, becoming the bad guy. You have no choice but to leave. That's why being a good person is important, especially for practitioners. If you can't conduct yourself well and everyone around you treats you badly in reality, that's not true. If people around you treat you poorly, it means you still have shortcomings. So, to a bodhisattva, everyone is a bodhisattva. To a Buddha, everyone is a Buddha. To an ordinary person, everyone is just an ordinary person. And in the eyes of someone filled with hatred, everyone is an enemy. I won't say much now as we're pressed for time today. Soon I might not have time to recite the Samantabhadra's aspiration to noble deeds. Once I finish speaking, I have to go out to take care of some things. Today we briefly discuss the skillful means chapter. Earlier, the Venerable Maitreya Bodhisattva asked the wise Manjushri Bodhisattva, and then Manjushri Bodhisattva explained the entire origin of the Buddha, the origin as it is described in the Lotus Sutra, and has already completely finished explaining it in detail to everyone present. As for the introductory chapter we covered earlier, in the Tibetan version, we often refer to it as the causes and conditions. Maybe causes and conditions is easier to understand, but calling it the introductory is fine. However, the causes and conditions might be appropriate because this sutra is based on a certain kind of initial dependent origination or its preliminary conditions, and it is under the gathering of such causes and conditions that it begins to manifest. The earlier section explained this principle. Now, as we come to the skillful means chapter, at this point, the Buddha, didn't we just mention earlier the samadhi of infinite meanings? Or rather, the Buddha entered a very special samadhi unique to the Lotus Sutra. And after this cause and condition, once Manjushri Bodhisattva and Maitreya Bodhisattva had concluded their dialogue, the Buddha then arose from his samadhi and subsequently addressed Shariputra, originally Manjushri Bodhisattva and Maitreya Bodhisattva speaking there, but the Buddha ignored them. Buddha spoke directly to Shariputra, who is truly foremost in wisdom, possessing an unparalleled understanding and profound insight, and then he told him, the profound wisdom of all Buddhas is indeed extremely deep and vast, truly boundless, and utterly limitless in its scope and reach. And moreover, the Buddha's enlightened wisdom is exceptionally difficult for ordinary beings to fully comprehend, and people often find it incredibly hard to approach and grasp its true essence. All the Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, and solitary Buddhas are fundamentally and completely unable to truly approach or fully comprehend it. Why is this the case? Here he begins by discussing the Buddha's exceptionally profound and boundless wisdom. Why is that? Why is the Buddha's wisdom so difficult to understand and extremely profound? Why is it that even Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas cannot fully comprehend it? What is the reason? It is because the Buddha is fundamentally different from Śrāvakas, Pratyekabuddhas, and ordinary beings. When the Buddha was still on the path of practice, he had already approached and relied upon countless teachers. He relied upon and learned from countless Buddhas, seeking their guidance and receiving their teachings. So there is a significant difference here. If you look at us ordinary people, common beings, the number of spiritual teachers we rely on is usually very small, and the time we spend with them is also very short. For example, you might follow a teacher for 10 years, 8 years, or 20 years, while some people only rely on their teacher for a few months. And then, unfortunately, conflicts often arise between the teacher and the disciple, and they ultimately end up abandoning each other. But as for the Buddha, over countless eons of dedicated practice, he consistently relied upon countless other Buddhas. Moreover, through his own diligent actions, he practiced countless Dharma methods in front of innumerable Buddhas. He cultivated all the spiritual paths, especially those centered on the profound 6 paramitas. And while practicing, he was never particularly lax or lazy. He didn't just idle away his days over there. It wasn't like that at all. He practiced with great courage and diligence. Such remarkable conduct, you could say, spread throughout the entire world. The Buddha accomplished these profound and unprecedented teachings with great wisdom and compassion. Ordinary Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas do not possess these. Moreover, the Buddha could teach according to the needs of sentient beings. He would adapt to the different capacities of beings. He would expound upon different Dharma methods accordingly, And as for the Buddha's profound and ultimate intentions, for example, the secret intentions, the 4 kinds of secrets and 4 kinds of intentions, they are also extremely difficult to unravel and comprehend. Ordinary worldly people have absolutely no way to fully grasp or understand them. There are slight, subtle differences in the Tibetan version of the text. Why are the Buddha's intentions so hard to decipher? This will be further explained below. But here, basically, it can be explained together with the previous content quite clearly. That should be acceptable as well for our understanding. From the first section, we understand that the Buddha's wisdom is extremely difficult to fathom completely. What is the fundamental reason for this? Because he once heavily relied upon countless Buddhas and their teachings and practiced the Dharma in front of countless Buddhas. Moreover, he was extremely diligent. In the past, in the Vinaya Sutra, there was King Vimalaprabha. At that time, King Vimalaprabha respectfully asked the Buddha, "When you first generated bodhicitta, how many Buddhas did you actually rely on for guidance?" When asked this important and profound question, the Buddha replied thoughtfully and with great compassion, "In my very first Asamkhya Kalpa, at the absolute beginning of time, I was a humble potter and diligently generated bodhicitta in front of the great Shakya Buddha. After I first generated this profound bodhicitta, during that initial Asamkhya Kalpa, I faithfully relied upon 75,000 enlightened Buddhas. In the second Asamkhya Kalpa, he diligently relied upon 76,000 Buddhas. In the third Asamkhya Kalpa, he faithfully relied upon 77,000 Buddhas. So, in each Asamkhya Kalpa, he relied on so many Buddhas, served and made offerings to so many, and practiced the path of Buddhahood with so many Buddhas. For us ordinary people in the world, it truly is very difficult to compare to this. As Buddhists, indeed, it is a profound and significant challenge. Sometimes after reading just 1 or 2 books, we think our wisdom is quite good, and we rely on a single teacher, and even then, the length of time we rely on them is uncertain. Let alone countless kalpas, even a few hundred years is out of the question. Including myself, sometimes I think, oh, I have indeed relied on a spiritual teacher, so I must be doing quite well. I have relied on the precious His Holiness for nearly 20 long years now, but that's just my own arrogance. In reality, in these 20 years, I haven't learned much about Buddhism at all. As for others, for example, now, perhaps many of the teachers have already passed away, and there may be a few teachers left, but they are very limited. The Dharma texts we have access to now are also very limited. So, as Buddhists, we should not be arrogant ourselves, thinking to ourselves, I have been diligently studying Buddhism for so many years now. Some people have studied Buddhism for 30 years, but in reality, during 20 years, out of the 360 days each year, how much time was actually spent on listening, contemplating, and practicing the Dharma? Each and every one of us should have a very clear and profound understanding of this truth deep within our hearts. So, as it is mentioned here, the Buddha truly surpasses us ordinary people, as well as the Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas, in his superior and enlightened methods. Furthermore, what does the Buddha possess? Since every sentient being has different capacities, he teaches according to their needs. But we can't do that, can we? We often, because we don't really know how, even when we talk to the people around us sometimes, because if I am not skillful in my speech, just one sentence might make everyone present unhappy. Sometimes when we lack skill in our words, the same goes for anything we do. In the world, it's also very difficult to accomplish things. This is talking about the profound and boundless wisdom of the Buddha. Next, the Buddha said to his esteemed disciple, Shariputra, "Since I attained the supreme state of Buddhahood, I have used all kinds of skillful causes and conditions, all sorts of illuminating analogies to extensively expound the teachings. With countless skillful means, I have guided innumerable boundless sentient beings to help them let go of all worldly attachments. In fact, ever since the Buddha attained enlightenment, he has used all kinds of methods, creating various causes and conditions. In the Buddhist scriptures, there are also many analogies, stories, and cases. There are all sorts of teachings, both incredibly broad and profoundly deep and extensive. In short, through all kinds of skillful means, everything the Buddha has done and said has been entirely to guide countless sentient beings, helping them leave suffering and attain happiness. We shouldn't remain attached to things that fundamentally do not exist, those illusory, dreamlike things. Yet we persist in our delusions, always indeed. In fact, sentient beings like us are truly pitiable. Most of our values are actually upside down. As everyone knows, the things we now believe to exist, in reality do not exist at all. And the things we think do not exist are actually real. Just look at how many people in the world today hold wrong views. They believe that karma doesn't exist, the three jewels don't exist, and that there is no past or future life. But in reality, from a conventional perspective, these things do exist. However, if we look at it from another angle, the things we consider to be real and tangible every day, for example, what we perceive as happiness or beauty, or whatever forms we believe to exist, if we truly examine their essence, these too are actually non-existent. They are nothing more than the attachments of sentient beings. All forms are illusory. Therefore, in fact, in different sutras and various profound teachings, there are all kinds of skillful methods to help us sentient beings completely break free from the intricate net of attachment and thereby attain the eternal, ultimate other shore, true liberation. Why is this precisely the case? The following discussion also elaborates that the skillful means of the Tathagata is actually the profound perfection of wisdom, prajna paramita, in terms of both knowledge and view. Originally, the Tathagata possesses, according to the esteemed Tiantai school, what they meticulously call provisional teachings and ultimate teachings. As for the so-called provisional teachings, many of the Tathagata's teachings contain skillful means, using these skillful means to guide countless sentient beings. This is what is called the content of provisional teachings. There is another part called ultimate teachings. As for ultimate teachings, these refer to the most definitive, the truest reality, and the most ultimate content. In certain specific situations, for certain sentient beings, the Buddha would indeed point these out, but they are not revealed to all sentient beings. It's just like the great perfection, Dzogchen, in our Vajrayana teachings. In fact, it is not directly and openly taught to all sentient beings. One should have met certain conditions and reached a certain level of realization. Only then can you give them this teaching. If you give such teachings under those circumstances, it will be extremely beneficial for them as well. So this is what is called ultimate teaching. As for the Tiantai school, I have actually read some of their works, and there are indeed many different teachings that are quite unique to them. They also have their own skillful means. Of course, we haven't studied them in great depth yet thoroughly and comprehensively. I just hope that as you are learning, you will also refer more frequently to the Tiantai school teachings and practices. After finishing the Lotus Sutra, no matter who we are, especially for Dharma teachers and some counselors, if in the future I want to go to a Tiantai school monastery or any of their communities, I would need to consider their specific practices and teachings. I should be able to share the key points of the Tiantai school without any problem. We should strive to reach this level. So from the profound wisdom of the Buddha to the state and meaning of Chan, Zen Buddhism, there really isn't much difference. But when it actually comes to the various methods and approaches, because the skillful means and insight of the Tathagata ultimately come down to his realization of the perfection, paramita. Why does the Tathagata guide sentient beings? Why does he do this? His main skillful means is his realization of the wisdom and meaning of the perfection, paramita. It is precisely because he has attained this realization that the Buddha told Shariputra, the Tathagata's insight is vast and profound, unobstructed, powerful, and fearless. In other words, the Tathagata possesses both profound depth and great breadth, and has immeasurable virtues. He also possesses the profound four unobstructed knowledges, the mighty 10 powers, the unwavering 4 fearlessnesses, and so on, as well as the tranquil 4 dhyanas and the liberating 8 liberations, and various kinds of samadhi, penetrating them to an immeasurable and boundless extent, accomplishing all these unprecedented dharmas. These dharmas are things that we ordinary people can't even begin to imagine, but the Tathagata has already fully attained them. That is why the Tathagata possesses skillful means, methods of skillful guidance, which are different from those of other bodhisattvas, also different from those of the Śrāvakas and solitary Buddha. It's the same in our worldly life as well. For example, take 2 people who are otherwise the same, but one of them, just like some of the dedicated teachers in our schools, those who have gone to the United States of America or the United Kingdom and diligently studied there for an extensive period of 8 or even 10 years when they eventually come back, their level, compared to many others, there is still a significant gap. This is also true if we look at the history of some scientists in our country today. Many scientists went abroad to further their studies and learned a great deal about innovation and invention from those advanced countries worldwide and internationally today, and gaining unique and exceptional wisdom through their experiences. After returning, they are completely different from the rest of the group members. In the same way, the Buddha possesses so many unique and remarkable qualities. The Buddha told Shariputra, "The Tathagata expounds the profound Dharma with all kinds of incredibly skillful and compassionate means, demonstrating his mastery in his teachings. His words are always delivered with a very gentle and soothing demeanor, which naturally makes all sentient beings feel deeply delighted, truly happy, and completely at ease in their hearts and minds." It's not like some of us who, with just a single, carefully chosen sentence, possess the remarkable ability to make many people feel profoundly uncomfortable or genuinely unhappy. In fact, the way we speak is extremely important. Sometimes the specific technique and method of speaking, even if it's the very same language, when two individuals have distinctly different ways of expressing themselves, it can truly make others feel quite differently. Just as it is said in the letter to a friend, language inherently possesses three distinct characteristics. The very worst kind of language is indeed extremely filthy, while truly good language is akin to the profound and pure speech of the Buddha or Bodhisattvas, or in our worldly context, language that is especially gentle, sincere, sweet, and joyful. Therefore, when it comes to the Buddha's words, indeed, in the process of listening and contemplating, I feel that we are truly blessed and fortunate to have such profound words from the Buddha. At that time, the Buddha told Shariputra, to put it simply, or in summary clearly, the Buddha has already accomplished countless, boundless, and truly unprecedented dharmas, many profound qualities and teachings that other sentient beings do not possess and have never had before. So many, many virtues and so many, many teachings. The Buddha has already accomplished them all. Perhaps some of us may not necessarily believe this, wondering how the Buddha could possess such things while we do not. Actually, it's best if you first open up all the Buddhist scriptures, the words of the Buddha, and study them one by one. After you've done that, only then might you be able to feel it and truly sense whether the Buddha is indeed omniscient as claimed, possessing a wisdom that is completely different from that of ordinary beings like us. He has especially profound wisdom. This particular point is very important indeed. The Buddha told Shariputra, here he says, "Stop, Shariputra," in many commentaries within the Chinese tradition. It is said that the Buddha told Shariputra, "Shariputra, never mind, I won't say any more." Some interpret it as never mind. But as I see it in the Tibetan version, the Buddha tells Shariputra, what has been said above is already sufficient. There is no need to elaborate further. Because the profound wisdom of the Buddha has already been explained above, as well as the attainment of unprecedented Dharma gates and so on, all of this is already enough. It has been explained sufficiently. No need to elaborate further. No need to say anything more. Why is that? All the rare and hard-to-explain Dharma that the Buddha has truly realized can only be truly and profoundly communicated and discussed exclusively between Buddhas themselves. If explained to others, I'm afraid they wouldn't even understand. It's just not possible. So for this very important reason, why not say a little more? If too much is indeed said, even Shariputra, although the Buddha has a rather good and favorable impression of him, when it comes to wisdom in comparison, there are still certain difficulties. It's like in the profound Nirvana Sutra, which specific arhat was it truly talking about in that particular passage? It seems that the Venerable Shariputra was diligently teaching the sacred Dharma to two individuals. He had one person practice the contemplation of white bones, and the other practice mindfulness of breathing. They practiced for a long time, but there was no effect at all. Later, the Buddha told him, "You mixed up the two people's aptitudes." The one who should have been practicing the contemplation of white bones was this person. Let him contemplate white bones. Because he often washed clothes, he actually had a considerable and distinct advantage in this particular area. And the other person should have been practicing mindfulness of breathing. As for why he should practice breathing, it seems it was related to his occupation. The Buddha switched the two practices. He understood their individual aptitudes. Afterwards, when they practiced accordingly, they achieved realization in short time. Originally, both of them had already developed wrong views about Buddhism. They thought, we've been practicing so long and haven't felt anything. So sometimes for Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas, even though they guide sentient beings, their guidance does not possess the wisdom of the Buddha. Therefore, there are still certain difficulties. That's why for some even more profound states, only Buddhas can discuss them with each other, or, in other words, explore the ultimate reality of all phenomena together deeply and comprehensively throughout time and space. Next, it is mentioned that the Buddha can actually fully and thoroughly understand what exactly? The 10 aspects of all dharmas, the 10 dharmas completely and perfectly. What exactly are these 10 dharmas then? They are suchness of appearance, nature, substance, power, action, cause, condition, and result. Suchness of retribution and suchness of the ultimate beginning and end, and so on. The Buddha is completely and utterly proficient in all of these things. So sometimes when comparing Chinese to Tibetan, the Chinese is a bit easier to understand because the Tibetan version, for example here, terms like suchness of substance and suchness of power are not really explained. From the Tibetan perspective, it's difficult to distinguish these 10 aspects. The Chinese version doesn't explicitly say the Buddha is proficient in these 10 aspects. But in reality, it means that the Buddha is indeed proficient in them. All these things that the Buddha has realized can only be discussed between Buddhas themselves. Why is that? Because the Buddha is thoroughly and completely aware of all the aspects, natures, substances, and powers of all phenomena, without leaving out a single detail. He is fully and perfectly enlightened to all of them. As for the term suchness of aspect here, I've carefully looked at some extensive commentaries on the profound Lotus Sutra originating from China, and many Dharma masters have slightly different interpretations. But what I basically understand here is many Dharma masters may not have the same explanation, but regarding suchness of aspect here, this aspect refers to the apparent aspect of conventional truth. Within conventional truth, there's also genuine and false conventional. So aspects can be divided into true and false aspects. Mainly, it refers to the aspect of appearance, which the Buddha is truly aware of. As for suchness of nature, every dharma has its own nature. For example, fire inherently possesses the nature of heat, while water naturally exhibits the nature of moisture. And people have both negative and positive natures indeed. Each person has different characteristics. This is what is meant by nature. Regarding suchness of substance, every dharma, I noticed that some dharma masters attribute all of this to sentient beings. But in fact, this refers to the nature and substance of all phenomena, clearly and fundamentally. As for substance, every dharma has its own unique size, shape, color, and so on quite distinctly. Whether it is an insentient dharma or a sentient dharma, each possesses a distinct form. Then, regarding the suchness of power, every dharma inherently has its own unique power. Insentient dharmas have the power of insentient, and sentient dharmas have the power of sentient beings. Buddhas have the power of Buddhas. Ordinary people have the power of ordinary people. A camera has the power of a camera. A teacup has the power of a teacup. So every dharma possesses its own truly unique power. And the very same principle applies to its function. Power and function are indeed somewhat similar. But in terms of their value and significance, they are also different. For example, if I am a Dharma teacher has the function, a house has the function. A camera has the function of a camera. Its power and its overall function, if we are being a bit more rigorous about this point, can actually be clearly distinguished according to certain principles. Every Dharma has its own cause. As for causes, as discussed, there are proximate direct causes. The mind has its own cause. External inanimate phenomena have their own causes. This includes nirvana, Buddhahood, or even the states of Śrāvakas and Pratyekabuddhas. Each of them has its own preceding cause. As for conditions, external conditions are not the main cause. What we commonly refer to as external factors primarily play a supportive role. For instance, a seed is the fundamental cause. External elements like sunlight and moisture are the essential conditions. Therefore, as for the ultimate result, the outcome produced by any dharma. When we talk about retribution or karmic results, it truly generally involves the concept of the ongoing mind stream of sentient beings. For instance, in the Abhidharmakosha, the explanation of cause and effect is quite clear. For example, there are results such as ripened retribution, corresponding results, or others, including the function result. These truly belong to dharmas that are fully encompassed by mind stream. All of them inherently possess different kinds of retribution, various responses, and so on. Finally, as for the ultimate origin and end, no matter what kind of dharma it is, in the end, there is an ultimate origin and end. From the beginning to the very end, the most ultimate dharma, in fact, on one hand is emptiness and on the other is luminosity. As for luminosity and emptiness, the most ultimate true nature of every dharma is inseparable and indivisible. That is to say, its true nature truly exists in a way that is neither entirely separate nor completely united. This is called the ultimate origin and end. Therefore, in reality, only the Tathagata can truly and fully comprehend these profound dharmas. As for others, anyone in our worldly realm, including what we now commonly refer to as the most top-level and distinguished scientists, perhaps scientists have thoroughly studied certain characteristics of a particular dharma and have researched them to a very profound degree, but they do not fully understand all 10 intricate aspects of all phenomena one by one. There is a text called the Comprehensive Treatise on the Lotus Sutra. In the Comprehensive Treatise on the Lotus Sutra, a citation is made, which should be a clear and definitive doctrinal proof derived from the revered Lankavatara Sutra. All phenomena are unborn. I speak of the meaning of instantaneousness. All phenomena have no arising. I speak of their momentary significance. At the very moment of its initial arising, there is also its inevitable and complete cessation, a natural conclusion. This is certainly not spoken for the ignorant. Some commentators use this to correspond to the 10 meanings mentioned above. But as for precisely how to make the correspondence, I think any method is perfectly acceptable and entirely valid. The point is, from the ultimate perspective, all phenomena really, there is absolutely nothing that can truly ever arise. In terms of appearance, it is momentary. Every phenomenon, the moment it arises, it also ceases. Arising and ceasing should occur simultaneously. Of course, such profound principles are not spoken for the ignorant. They cannot be explained to the dull-witted, else they cannot accept it. So sometimes, when teaching Madhyamaka, we also need to consider the students in the Madhyamaka class. Sometimes are the students perhaps a bit slow-witted, or do they have strong wrong views? If their wrong views are too strong, they shouldn't attend. Let them teach something simpler. Just kidding, that's fine too, at least it plants a virtuous seed. Otherwise, some Dharma teachers say things very bluntly.
Khenpo said, those of you who didn't pass the exam this time, all of you should definitely take a well-deserved and much-needed break and not attend the class today. It's important to rest.
If I spoke exactly like that today, it wouldn't be very appropriate at all whatsoever. In fact, the Buddha's truly profound, deep meaning, if one truly lacks genuine wisdom, is very difficult to properly explain clearly. Nowadays, some people mistakenly think that after learning just a little bit of Buddhism, after reading the Heart Sutra or the Prajnaparamita Sutra, they believe they have understood the emptiness of prajna. But that's not really the case. We must study diligently and thoroughly before we can truly understand the profound teachings within. All of these principles above, at that time, the Buddha wanted to reiterate to everyone in the form of a verse. Is the following verse particularly long or not? It's actually not very long at all. In fact, it's quite concise. Next, the Buddha profoundly uses a verse to tell everyone, first praising the Buddha, what are his truly inconceivable and immeasurable merits like? The hero of the world is truly beyond all measure. Among all gods and humans alike, his virtues are boundless and his wisdom is infinite. Of all sentient beings, none can truly and completely know the Buddha. First and foremost, it says that the hero of the world is truly unparalleled. We often talk about the great hero hall or worldly heroes, just as it is profoundly and wisely said in the Bodhicaryavatara, the way of the Bodhisattva, earning the title of hero through war, does not necessarily make one a true hero. The one who subdues and conquers their afflictions is the greatest hero. Therefore, in this world, the Buddha is truly incomparable. Among humans and gods, among all sentient beings in the world, there is no one like him. It is very difficult to know his profound qualities. Why is that? Because the Buddha possesses the 10 powers, the 4 kinds of fearlessness, and the 8 liberations, as well as countless and boundless samadhis, and so on. In addition, the Buddha possesses other qualities, such as the 18 unique attributes and so forth. These are things that ordinary worldly people find difficult to fathom, difficult to measure, and difficult to understand. So we can all take a moment to reflect deeply on this. If you truly think that the Buddha is nothing special, take a look at what the Buddha's 18 unique attributes are, what the 4 kinds of fearlessness are, and what the 10 powers are. What are the qualities of his perfect physical marks? If you examine each one, you will come to understand. If some people still have doubts about these aspects, first you can go to India, to the place where the Buddha was born, the place where he renounced the worldly life, the place where he turned the wheel of Dharma, and later the place where he manifested parinirvana. Go and learn about each of the 12 deeds manifested by the Buddha one by one. At what time did he appear in such a way? What kinds of written treatises did he leave behind? We should all be able to understand these clearly. Therefore, it is profoundly necessary for every individual to observe with truly fair, impartial, and deeply discerning wisdom. Next, it is explicitly mentioned that the Buddha's profound wisdom is truly extraordinary and unparalleled. Originally, the Buddha diligently practiced the arduous and compassionate Bodhisattva path over countless eons in front of innumerable Buddhas, accumulating immense merit and understanding. He thoroughly understood all the profound and subtle teachings, those that are difficult to see and difficult to realize. He comprehended each and every one of them. This means that in front of countless Buddhas, the Buddha practiced and mastered one by one the profound, subtle, and hard to perceive, hard to attain teachings. He practiced and fully realized each of them one by one. Moreover, the Buddha truly and diligently practiced the profound Bodhisattva path over countless vast eons, after the Bodhisattva path was brought to complete perfection. In such profound circumstances, the Buddha was also extremely clear in his boundless wisdom. The truly profound, tranquil, play-free, luminous, and unconditioned Dharma I have indeed attained, the wondrous, nectar-like Dharma. Even if I were to explain it to others, they would not fully understand. Therefore, I shall remain silent and abide in the forest.
I used
Tibetan, otherwise I didn't quote it properly just now, so I feel a bit embarrassed. I think it's fine for me to use Tibetan, because even if I recite it wrong in Tibetan, you wouldn't understand anyway. But my recitation is still pretty good. There are a few people who can truly understand it. So the Buddha had already realized the profound state of the play-free, luminous, and unconditioned Dharma. And then, over countless eons, he diligently practiced such a path, attaining fruition at the sacred place of enlightenment. As for this place of enlightenment in Tibetan, it isn't explicitly referred to as such. This entire complex process of practicing the deeply profound, ancient spiritual path and attaining true accomplishment, I now fully understand completely, absolutely all of it, clearly. The 10 kinds of Dharma we discussed earlier, whether it's the results, the various characteristics, or the meanings, all of these are things that both I and the Buddhas of the 10 directions can fully understand. Just now, in the prose section, it wasn't very clear. It didn't explicitly say that I understand these 10 kinds of Dharma. But here it is clearly stated that the Buddha has already fully realized the 10 kinds of profound ancient Dharma mentioned above. And what else has the Buddha truly realized beyond this? It is completely inexpressible. If you try to describe it with ordinary human words, it simply cannot be conveyed properly at all. It is beyond language, utterly silent. It is a profound state that other sentient beings simply cannot fully comprehend. The Buddha has attained each and every one of these, truly understanding the inherent nature of all phenomena, is truly beyond the reach of all thought and language, neither arising nor ceasing to exist. Its nature is like nirvana. As Bodhisattva Nagarjuna said in the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, the true nature of all phenomena is beyond the reach of thought and language. Often discussed in Chan Buddhism, it cannot be expressed by mind, action, or language. Neither arising nor ceasing, the nature of phenomena is like nirvana. Such principles cannot be conveyed through language. It's also very difficult to express them by any other means. For most other sentient beings, such profound states are unattainable. When I explain other treatises, I often quote certain passages, such as scriptural evidence from the Expedient Means chapter of the Lotus Sutra. I've often cited these profound teachings in my previous extensive teachings before. I wonder if you have any clear impression of this now. Such deep Dharma, apart from the enlightened Bodhisattvas, apart from those devoted Bodhisattvas with completely unwavering faith, the kind of state described above is very difficult to comprehend. As mentioned earlier, the Buddha's state is extremely hard to approach. Who then can approach this state that is so difficult to enter? Only the Bodhisattvas. As just mentioned, it cannot be expressed in words, nor can it be represented by any other means. Ordinary sentient beings simply cannot approach it. Only those with faith, with wisdom, and with unwavering conviction can do so. Not the kind of faith that keeps changing back and forth, where today your faith is incredibly strong, but tomorrow it turns into wrong views. And the day after, you have neither wrong views nor faith, just stuck in a kind of apathetic state. Some people become numb, and their changes happen very quickly. Gendon Chompo described. They don't trust their own state of mind. From childhood until now, their mindset has changed countless times. So sometimes they feel enthusiastic about something, other times not at all. Sometimes they really want to eat something, but the next day they don't want it anymore. So in this world, the mindset of us ordinary people is just like the weather in spring, very changeable. Here it is said that only bodhisattvas with unwavering faith are able to receive the Buddha's profound wisdom. This time, my main purpose in teaching the Lotus Sutra is, first, I want to study it thoroughly myself as well. I want to be able to understand the literal meaning and explain it clearly. If there are parts you can't explain clearly, or if you find it impossible to continue explaining, it's best to ask each other during group discussions. After the teaching is finished, everyone should feel confident. Anyway, as long as you find truly sincere, dedicated disciples, there shouldn't be any real problem with the profound Lotus Sutra teachings. Be mentally prepared well, right? Next, let's talk carefully about those who simply cannot enter. In other words, which sentient beings do not understand the Lotus Sutra? Among the Buddha's disciples, even those who have made offerings to countless Buddhas, who have already eliminated all afflictive obstacles and are at the stage of the last to be reborn, who have attained a state where they no longer need to transmigrate in the world, even such people still lack sufficient ability. They cannot directly enter the Buddha's profound wisdom. This will be explained further below. Suppose the entire vast world were completely filled with wise people exactly like you, Shariputra. Shariputra is someone with truly considerable great wisdom indeed. In this suffering Saha world today, if everyone became like you, Shariputra, and even if you used all your wisdom to measure the Buddha's wisdom, it still wouldn't be possible. If all sentient beings in this entire world became exactly like you today, because as for Shariputra's truly profound, exceptional wisdom indeed, for example, even when young Shariputra first entered the mother's womb, and his mother was extremely wise. At that time, many panditas in India were simply unable to debate with her, and so on. She was truly very wise. But even if all the profound wisdom in the entire world were gathered together to measure it, it still wouldn't be possible. Suppose not just one world, but all the worlds throughout the 10 directions were all completely filled with people just like you, Shariputra, and the other senior disciples were exactly the same indeed, all becoming like the venerable Shariputra, filling the 10 directions of the universe. If all their collective thoughts and profound wisdom were gathered together, they still absolutely could not measure the boundless wisdom of the Buddha. Therefore, the Buddha's wisdom cannot be comprehended from the Śrāvaka level. Similarly, the profound wisdom of the Pratyekabuddhas is also cannot compare with Buddha. Even this extremely sharp wisdom in the end becomes something that still has an owner. Their afflictions are gone, and they no longer need to wander in the world. If such Pratyekabuddhas filled the world and filled this entire world, just like the vast and verdant bamboo forests that we find in our own natural world, There are so many bamboo forests in China, right? Just like a forest of bamboo, if all these people with one heart and mind gathered all their wisdom together, and for countless eons, he deeply contemplated the profound wisdom of the Buddha and tried to measure, guess, or assess the Buddha's wisdom. Even a small part of it would be impossible for the wisdom of Pratyekabuddhas. Even if all the wisdom of so many Pratyekabuddhas were gathered together, it still couldn't compare to the Buddhas at all. Next, let's talk about bodhisattvas who have just generated the aspiration. Newly aspiring bodhisattvas, those who have just made the vow. They just took refuge yesterday, and today they generate bodhicitta. I want to wear a new set of clothes. Because I'm a new bodhisattva, maybe I should look a bit better. Do I look a bit better? I just became a monastic. When I first became a monk, it was the same for me. At that time, I cared most about looking good, so the clothes I wore were the most beautiful ones. Now, many of our new monastics are the same way. The first thing is, do I look good? They look in the mirror, take a photo, and send it to their mom and dad. But who would have ever truly thought your loving, devoted parents feel especially deeply sad when they see you completely without hair now? However, it's quite different in Tibet today. In remote Tibet, if a young child becomes a Buddhist monastic, the proud parents are especially happy and joyful indeed. But if a child who was a monastic grows their hair out again, many parents start to feel especially sad. But in Han regions, there are still a few exceptions. Nowadays, there are still some people who cannot accept it. The unwavering support and deep understanding from parents for monastics, these essential things are indeed possible and can be achieved. Some parents can't accept it at first, but gradually they themselves start to consider ordaining. They used to oppose it, but in the end, they slowly start to want to become monastics, no matter what, for those with aspiration, those new inspired people. Look here, it says newly aspiring bodhisattvas, those who have just received the bodhisattva precepts. Actually, those who have just received the bodhisattva precepts, those who have just generated bodhicitta, they have also made offerings to countless tathagatas in the past. They also understand the Buddha's ultimate and definitive intent, and they are very skillful in teaching the Dharma to others. Moreover, when it comes to so many bodhisattvas, they are as numerous as the grains of rice in a vast paddy field, or the sesame seeds, or the dense bamboo groves, or the swaying reeds, and so on. In the Tibetan text, there are only two primary metaphors, like sesame seeds and reeds, I believe. There are so many bodhisattvas that they fill the entire 10 directions of the world. If all their thoughts and wisdom were gathered together, and for as many eons as there are grains of sand in the Ganges, they tried together to contemplate and measure the Buddha's wisdom, they still would not be able to do so. So generally speaking, when new bodhisattvas try to fathom it, those of us who have just begun to listen, reflect, and give rise to bodhicitta are called new bodhisattvas. Some of you might think, Buddhism is very simple. The Buddha is easy to understand. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was giving a talk on the standards for being a good student and child, Dizigwai. Later, there was a lay practitioner who was always particularly careless about hygiene. He said, the Buddha's wisdom and the teachings of Confucius and Mencius shouldn't be much different. Confucius and Shakyamuni Buddha are quite similar, wouldn't you agree? At that particular moment in time, I was indeed very angry. I said, you haven't even started to really listen and reflect yet, and you're already saying, they're about the same, about the same. He especially didn't like to study hard or reflect deeply at all, was extremely very stubborn indeed, and didn't even bother to wash his own dirty clothes regularly anymore. One time, I saw him walking slowly on the busy, crowded street, and his clothes were really quite filthy dirty then, obviously. So I actually wrote every dirty directly on his clothes clearly, and it was so easy, and it was so completely obvious that you could just write it right there immediately then, clearly. Now, moving on smoothly once again today, just then I was actually talking quite extensively and very thoughtfully about these newly inspired, devoted, compassionate, wise bodhisattvas here in great detail indeed. They also have no way of understanding the Buddha's wisdom, so we really need to reflect carefully. Indeed, some of us think, I fully understand the Tathagata's profound intent. I truly know what the Buddha truly is. Indeed, it is truly and profoundly wondrous. And even irreversible bodhisattvas, in worlds as numerous as Ganges sands, even if they all single-mindedly seek, they still cannot know. You see, when it comes to irreversible bodhisattvas, They are generally those at the first or even the eighth, Pumi and above. Even they are unable to know. So who can know the Buddha's ultimate, most profound intent? Only the Buddha alone knows. And then the Buddha spoke to Shariputra, the undefiled, inconceivable, and profoundly subtle Dharma. I have already fully attained it. Only the Buddha has completely perfected all undefiled virtues and wisdom. He has thoroughly understood all the profound and subtle teachings. Only I know these 10 kinds of Dharma that were mentioned above. And the Tathagatas of the 10 directions are the same in their perfect understanding and realization. In fact, whether it is Amitabha Buddha or Shakyamuni Buddha, all other Buddhas in the world are essentially the same. They have completely mastered all essential fundamental aspects of the profound Dharma teachings. As clearly stated in the revered Mahayana Secret Adornment Sutra, wisdom is truly unparalleled indeed, and only the enlightened Buddha can fully know it. Because the Buddha's profound wisdom is absolutely unmatched in this entire world, only the Buddha himself can truly understand the Buddha's incredibly deep and profound intent. Other ordinary people in this world simply cannot comprehend or do so. For example, consider a highly experienced physicist and another equally knowledgeable physicist. The two of them can have conversations in common and understand each other. But for others, like us ordinary common people who have never formally studied physics before at all, if we haven't even properly attended middle school classes regularly, it's likely impossible for us to understand advanced knowledge, even if it's explained to us. Now, moving on smoothly again, this genuine profound wisdom should truly inspire our deep abiding faith. Shariputra, you should clearly know well, the sacred words of all enlightened Buddhas are actually exactly the same. They all expound the true nature of reality and benefit sentient beings. There is no difference. We should develop faith in the teachings spoken by many Buddhas. Whether it is what Shakyamuni Buddha taught, or what other Buddhas have said, as long as it is spoken by a Buddha who has eliminated the 2 kinds of obstacles and possesses the 2 kinds of wisdom, an omniscient one, the Dharma they teach, we should wholeheartedly accept and practice it with the utmost faith and devotion. This is profoundly important. Here it is clearly stated that the world-honored one has been diligently teaching the profound Dharma for an extended period. Of course, among all these teachings, what the Buddha has imparted is undeniably true. This signifies that the Dharma, as expounded by the Buddha, encompasses a vast and diverse array of teachings. For example, there are the teachings of the Śrāvakayana, Pratyekabuddha, and Mahayana. But among all the teachings the Buddha gave over 49 years, the most essential and definitive teaching is actually the Lotus Sutra, Saddharma Pundarika Sutra. We should also develop strong faith in this and accept it wholeheartedly with deep devotion. When we accept it with sincere faith always, the power of the profound Dharma is truly inconceivable indeed. We will all receive it completely. Some of our esteemed Dharma friends often recite the profound Lotus Sutra. Here we also have a few Dharma teachers. After some time, I also want to interview them one by one. It is quite necessary to carefully observe how they recite it and precisely what they have truly gained. Some of you have practiced the Lotus Sutra for many years, even a lifetime. I know a few, there are several in our institute. But if there are more, I hope that when I interview you, you can share a bit about your own experience, not necessarily your realization, but your overall experience. And you don't need to talk about realizations, otherwise you might feel nervous. Roughly how many years have you been reciting the Lotus Sutra, or how many years you have studied it? Just things like that. Actually, the merit from this is truly immense. I don't know if you remember, but a very long time ago, when I was teaching the Bodhisattva, I shared a particular story with everyone. It was probably during the Eastern Jin period. I seem to remember that this story was recorded in the Comprehensive Chronicle of Buddhas and Patriarchs, among other sources. It also appears in the old records of Mount Eme, if I recall correctly. There was a devoted Dharma master named Faji, Master Faji himself. He recited the sacred Lotus Sutra faithfully for 7 long years continuously. While he was reciting the Lotus Sutra daily outdoors, there was a small, beautiful wild pheasant under his wooden recitation platform that always listened very attentively the whole time, patiently. In the very end, it eventually died, and after its passing, it appeared in the master's dream. It said it had been reborn into the Wang family at the foot of the mountain. Later, when the devoted master happened to go down the mountain one day, the wealthy local family was holding a grand, elaborate banquet or joyful celebration there. When he finally arrived there, the little child there said, "My master has come and could speak." Moreover, directly beneath the child's armpit, there were indeed a few distinct pheasant feathers, clearly visible. Later, the child was named Yi, meaning wing, a name that reflected this unique discovery. When the child turned 7 years old, he made the significant decision to become a monk. Eventually, after a period of spiritual development, he was formally named Tanyi. I think we've mentioned him before, the esteemed Master Tanyi. Later, Master Tanyi had the opportunity to study under Master Huiyuan of Donglin Temple on Mount Lu, the patriarch of the Pure Land School, as well as Kumarajiva and others. In his later years, he lived in the mountains, reading the Lotus Sutra. He kept reciting the scriptures, living in a thatched hut. Later, while living in the thatched hut, there was a manifestation of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. A woman came there at night. I won't go into extensive detail about this particular process. Then, the very next day, you can certainly look it up yourselves. How to effectively use a monk's staff for a therapeutic massage. We've thoroughly talked about this before. The next day, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva had already appeared in person. He highly praised his pure and profound precepts and so on. After this remarkable situation became widely known, someone reported the extraordinary events to the esteemed emperor. The benevolent emperor, recognizing the great significance, specially granted official permission to construct a magnificent monastery. At that time, the monastery was called Fahua Temple, and later it was renamed Tianyi Temple. It seems to be in the Shaoxing area of Zhejiang now. It is widely said that the current name of this significant place is also Fahua Temple. I have previously read some of their detailed introductions before, which provided valuable insights. But perhaps the monastery is not very large. In the near future, if someone were to invite me, I would go there to teach the Lotus Sutra. So, as you can see, just like in the biography of the His Holiness earlier, some Dharma masters simply recite the Lotus Sutra every day. And if birds hear it, they eventually attain a human body. It's just like the story we told before about Master Anhui, when Master Vasubandhu recited the Prajnaparamita Sutra 990,000 times. When Master Anhui was a dove and listened carefully to it, and in the end he was reborn as a human with extraordinary wisdom. So when we carefully read the Lotus Sutra, even if its sacred teachings are merely heard by the ear, even sentient animals can auspiciously attain a favorable human rebirth. This is true, let alone for anything else. Therefore, we should truly regard this Dharma text as being of extremely significant and paramount importance. Then the compassionate Buddha immediately addressed the entire gathered assembly of devoted Śrāvakas and those earnestly seeking enlightened Pratyekabuddhahood with great wisdom. The Buddha taught the Śrāvakas the Dharma of the Śrāvaka vehicle and taught the Pratyekabuddhas the Dharma of the Pratyekabuddha vehicle. He freed them completely from the oppressive bonds of suffering and pain and ultimately enabled them to attain nirvana. The Buddha skillfully expounded the three vehicles through skillful means, because sentient beings are attached everywhere, so he leads them out accordingly. No matter what kind it is, the Buddha used the method of the three vehicles. The Buddha, with great skillful means, employed the teachings of the three vehicles. Each sentient being, in different circumstances and in different ways, has all sorts of attachments and sufferings, and the Buddha helped them become liberated from these attachments and sufferings. This is the Buddha's most skillful and expedient method. Nowadays, some people say, this is just chicken soup for the soul. But actually, this so-called chicken soup for the soul, as long as it benefits sentient beings, is worth our acceptance. On the surface, this may seem very shallow, nothing special. To you, it might not mean much. But for other sentient beings, it can actually be very important. Through this approach, they can truly let go, see through things, and attain freedom. There was once a person, this is a story mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures, I believe, a profound narrative. There was a person holding vases in both hands, carefully making offerings to the Buddha. The Buddha then told him to let go of what he held. He put down the vase in his left hand. Then he put down the vase in his right hand. After that, the Buddha said, "Let go 3 times." I can't remember if it was the Buddha or a Chan master, but anyway, this story exists from the past. He was asked to let go. In the end, he said, "I've already let go with both hands. What else is there to let go of now?" The important point is, letting go is not just about our external actions. Sometimes when you let go in your heart, it seems that the so-called suffering in this world isn't actually that serious. It's just that we can't let go in our hearts. Once we do let go in our hearts, the most effective way to truly let go is to fully realize the profound true nature of all phenomena. After that, it becomes very easy indeed. Let's stop here for today.
Bandhangara Badma Sadarda Bandhangara Badma Sada Bandhangara Badma Sadarda